One Star Cowboys podcast, post-game edition, as the Cowboys beat the Commanders 44-22, coming to you Sunday evening around 8 o'clock Central Time. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're starting off the week right as the Cowboys got the win. I'm Kevin Turner. We have Saad from The Athletic. We have Kent Garrison, and we will have Father John Machota here in a bit. He will be chiming in a bit towards the end. Don't fast forward to him yet. Saad, big takeaway from that Cowboys dominant victory over the Commanders today.
Well, I mean, I think first of all, just the defense was so much better than you could have hoped that they would be. I mean, it's been struggling with the way that Rico Dowdle ran all over them recently. And, when you look at the running back situation in Washington the backfield situation when Jaden Daniels and then Bill, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and everybody else they have there. I really thought the running game would be a bigger factor for Washington, especially with Deebo Samuel out, Terry McLaurin out. But I thought the defense did a really good job of kind of clamping down on the Commanders' offense. And then, of course, the other big storyline for me was the return of CeeDee Lamb. And I mean, it's exactly what you would have hoped for it to be. He was phenomenal. So I think those two things on both sides of the ball kind of stand out. And as a side thing, two quick nuggets. Well, one is just Brandon Aubrey. That 61-yard field goal would have been good for 70. That was insane. And then second, I was just telling Kent before we started recording, this is the second 44-22 game. That was the final, right? 44-22? Yes. Yeah, it's the second 44-22 game in NFL history. I thought we were closing in on Scorigami, but it's the only one other time as it happened before. It was in 1967. So first time that we've had that score. I think that safety threw things off in terms of scoreboard stuff. So, there you go. Almost a Scorigami as well.
Yeah, no, the safety definitely would change things a little bit how that could have gone because it would have kind of stayed on your more normal NFL score trajectory there. I think for me, one thing that really jumps out at me is first of all, just any type of game theory worked really good for the Cowboys in terms of just being ahead like every NFL team, but you get ahead and then you can kind of not have those holes on defense be as exposed as much. I know it's not the Commanders' style of play to slow things down and really try to maybe establish the run a little bit, even though they are one of the league's leading rushing offenses. Like slowing things down and playing more of a ball possession game, that's not anything Cliff Kingsbury wants to do. But I think that is a good way to play the Dallas Cowboys because if you want to try to go to shootout mode with the Cowboys, especially with CeeDee Lamb back, that is just not going to work. And I think you saw how this played. Cowboys get up very quickly and really no chance for Bill to get going on the ground. And the Cowboys look like they stuffed him all day. And it's like, well, he only got 13 carries and who knows what that would have looked like in a different type of, trajectory of the game. So I think that's an interesting thing that just going into it, like schematically I would be very curious to know, was Washington just thinking, hey, shoot them out or trust in your defense, whatever it is, but playing Washington, like playing the way Washington normally plays, which is kind of playing a little bit faster. That's not the way to play against the Cowboys because they are going to score points every single week.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I think when you play that Cliff Kingsbury style, you only kind of have one speed. They don't really have that option. And we've talked about this before when Brian Schottenheimer would talk about how teams or their run defense is better or something like that before they got exposed. Part of the reason why is because teams just aren't patient enough to stick with one thing, and they aren't patient enough to do death by 1,000 cuts. They usually get antsy a little bit. And I think you saw that a little bit, but I thought the defensive line played really well for the Cowboys. I felt like the linebackers were doing a good job. I thought Jaden Daniels was off a little bit. There were some plays that he left out there. The one over the middle that could have been a pick. There was that one, and on that play, Bill was running wide open up the sideline on the right side, and he just never saw him on that play. So, I think Jaden left some plays out there. I thought the Cowboys defense played well, but I totally agree with you. It's not just the way that Washington plays. This is also the way the Cowboys have to play. Like, they have to get up early and play from a lead. And the good news is like that's not something that's impossible for them. I was talking with John earlier, and just we were talking about what are the best trios in the NFL. And I mean, this is right up there as one of the top two or three. Obviously, in Cincinnati, you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but Burrow's not there right now. So I think it's probably either Stafford with Puka Nakua and Devontae Adams, and maybe this one. And we're talking trio, two receivers and the quarterback here. So I think they're right up there. So they're capable of doing that every single time.
Yeah, and I think this is something where you do see the big difference that CeeDee Lamb has immediately. I know another thing I was thinking, like when you look at Washington having Debo out, having Terry McLaurin out, it did make sense for me to kind of change what they were doing a little bit, but just not going to be the case. It was pretty obvious after the first quarter, we were looking at a high scoring game. We were talking about a first quarter that took, dude, I mean, it was almost about an hour that it took to play the first quarter. I mean, and you have the Cowboys scoring very quickly to go up 7-0. George Pickens gets the pass interference, and on the first drive, and the Cowboys then get a stop, and Washington pins them down at the 1, and then Javonte Williams gets stuffed, and it's a safety. And you're going, oh my gosh, we had this like great start, and it's almost like ruined. And it's 7-2, and then you give them the ball back, and they went up 8-7. But then after that, man, it was just like there was just nothing that Washington could do to stop the Cowboys when CD and George Pickens were on the field at the same time. And I just wonder how many teams it's going to be that for. Like Denver might have some answers next week, but it's a reminder that we didn't get to see a lot of George Pickens and CD Lamb together before CD got hurt earlier in the year. And to kind of see it in full again was just a good reminder of what the offense can be.
Yeah, and I think Denver, yeah, they could. Their defense is great, and there's no question about it. But the Giants today, I know it was a crazy ending to that game, but the Giants were able to move the ball on them, and I think Dak is just again we can't just say this enough. The level that he's playing at is incredible. If you had any doubts about how he would get both of them involved, CD led the team with 8 targets. Jake Ferguson had 7. George Pickens had 6. I mean, that's as balanced as you can get, and that's exactly what you would expect that receiving core to look like. So I think Dak is playing really well, and because of that, I have no question that they'll be able to move the ball the way they are. Because CD 8 targets, 5 catches, George Pickens 6 targets, 4 catches, and both went over 80 yards. Just phenomenal by the receiving core,
and just stressing that secondary the entire game, and then able to get ahead and then run the ball. As the game went on. Another 100-yard game for Javonte Williams, 19 carries, 116 yards. Like very huge. I thought there was an important sequence that we should discuss at the end of the first half.
Oh yeah.
Since you already shouted out the Brandon Aubrey 61-yarder, but 20-8, and then Washington scores, and that a really big Jeremy McNichols run where Marquise Bell missed a tackle, and then Jaden Daniels scores on the keeper. So it's 20-15 with 45 seconds left in the first half. And I just love how the Cowboys attack that. Like, we know the Cowboys are going to try to score, even if there's 10 seconds left in the half with, someone like Brandon Aubrey. But that gets sacked on first down, and that did not stop them from staying aggressive. And then he hits Pickens on the bomb, and then Javonte Williams has a big long run down to the 2, and you end up with the, easy play action touchdown to Jake Ferguson. So you answered their response with 45 seconds left in the first half. You score again to make it 27-15 going into the half. And I thought that was really big, because if it's 20-15 going into the half, even if it's 23-15, like you get an Aubrey field goal, Washington's getting the ball. It feels like it could have been a bit of a different game. That felt like a really huge moment in the game.
Yeah, that was gigantic. And I mean, we saw like last week, there was so much chatter about the way the Jets handled their situation at the end of the first half, just letting clock go. And of course, that is the way extreme on the other side, where you have nothing going on offense. You don't have an offensive coach. You don't have a quarterback. You don't have playmakers. And you just kind of let the clock run. But my point is, on the other side of the spectrum where the Cowboys are, they have so much confidence in the way that they're moving offensively. And I think what allows you to even begin the drive and get going like that is because you have Brandon Aubrey. I mean, you know that you only have to get to midfield. Now, get those big plays like the Javonte Williams run, and all of a sudden you're kind of operating in sort of a bonus area where you're trying to get a touchdown. But no question, I mean, I don't think they're thinking when they go out there with 40 seconds left that they're going to score a touchdown. But I do feel like they're extremely confident that they're going to get 3 points. And then what happens along the way happens along the way. So I think it's a testament to Schottenheimer's mindset. I thought that was really good. You could have easily tried to even have those play calls which honestly, the Javonte Williams run probably is a play call where you are playing for a field goal at that point. You're not counting on him busting out, a big gain on that. So you are playing that way, but then that's where you need your playmakers to show up.
Yeah, and also, when you look at this game, I guess the first series in the second half, Jaden Daniels gets hurt. So you had a half of Jaden Daniels and you had a half of Marcus Mariota. And obviously the pick six is a huge play in this game as well, with DaRon Bland scoring, somehow fighting through the sun and catching the ball and getting the pick six. But overall, like I think the defense, there was an energy out there that was not there in Carolina last week. And maybe that's a little home crowd. Is it too lazy of a take to be like, no Trayvon Diggs, maybe a little addition by subtraction? Is that a crazy lazy man take? I mean, it's hard to speak on it without being in the locker room and stuff like that. But yeah, it's crossed every Cowboys fan's mind today.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I won't talk about a specific coaching staff or opposing things, but I talk to people around the league, and I can tell you there have been games that coaches and coaching staffs have literally looked at Trayvon Diggs as like a guy with a target on his back and said, we are running outside zone in that direction, and that's going to be part of the game plan. Sometimes it's not really as difficult as scheming things up. Sometimes players do look at that. So I think that probably changed a little bit of the way that Washington approached the game plan. When you look at losing Trayvon, whether it's in the pass game or the run game, I do believe the Trayvon injury played a factor. Now, I'm not going to be naive and say, he's not worthy of being out there compared to the other corners. Like, of course, the talent is there. We know that. But I don't know, man. I mean, this has been a question with Trayvon for a little bit about just the buy-in. And that's a tough place to be in, because I remember going to coordinator press conferences after every game under Mike Zimmer, and there was no player that was under more fire and that Mike Zimmer liked less than Trayvon Diggs. So that's now two defensive coordinators that have just not been fans of Trayvon Diggs, because I don't know about Eberflus. I'm not there every day the way I used to be, but it doesn't seem like Trayvon, based on his comments, is bought into what Eberflus is selling. And I know he wasn't bought in with Zimmer, and Zimmer was not happy with him either. So I think it might be, you do have to have a little bit of a hard conversation. I mean, we're just a few games removed from Trayvon being benched to start the game. So it's not a crazy conversation.
Yeah. And look, there's no, it's almost like there is coming. Like, you could have a bad game and give up a bunch of points next week without him. So to throw the narrative in the trash. But there is a part of me that does kind of go, man, I don't know if there's really any coming back from this. Even on the TV broadcast, Tom Brady is pointing out the Cowboys were going to play, more man coverage this week. And I don't know if that was a last minute, late in the week decision after you get the Trayvon news or what, but that's what we've kind of been asking them to do a little bit more. And maybe they just don't feel comfortable doing that with him because he's got that target on his back sometimes. You were talking about against the run even, but maybe against the pass as well. It's just something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that in week 3 when Luther Burden burned past him, with the Chicago Bears. So I think, yeah, you're right. That's in the pass game as well. I'll be curious to see kind of how, because Trayvon will be back and he's not going to be a game day inactive if he's healthy or anything like that. So I'm curious to see how he's incorporated in this defense and everything. But I think that's going to be a interesting conversation for sure. Real quick, 2 players that I just want to shout out that I thought, one I thought played really well. One had a good moment. The good moment was obviously DaRon Bland. Marcus Mariota just making a really dumb play. I mean, DaRon Bland's had a lot of pick sixes in his career where he's made really good play on the ball. I don't know if this was exactly one of those. I mean, I thought he made a decent play, but Marcus Mariota just gave it to him. And sometimes, and hey, you don't apologize for those. So I thought that was a great play. But the player that, really popped out to me the most was Donovan Ezraku. The game that he had was just
Yeah.
phenomenal. And, you know, not to bring this back to Micah or anything, but I wonder what his season would be looking like right now if he was playing opposite of Micah Parsons, as the plan was when they drafted him. I mean, I think we'd be talking about a real breakout star on the defensive line, like nationally. That I think that could have been the conversation. But just from a local standpoint and watching the nitty gritty, the way that he's going about playing the pass and the run, I think as Rocco's getting better every week, and he had a really good game as well.
That slow and steady improvement of him, and it's almost made you forget about Sam Williams. Like he's been really good. Like really the last 3-4 weeks.
Sam Williams got bailed out. Sam Williams got bailed out today on that 4th and 2.
Yep.
Which could have been encroachment or neutral zone infraction, and would have given them a first down. So yeah, you bring up Sam Williams. That was a bad play.
Yeah, it's the positive notes on Sam Williams aren't as high as we were hoping this year.
No.
Let me throw out another name. Guy who made a few plays today, and then the first play he made today, I went, oh crap! I kind of forgot we got Jadeveon Clowney. So it's good to see him show up a little bit.
And yeah, I think he's getting acclimated. So yeah, I think it is getting a bigger role.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's kind of interesting to me because while we know what he is at this stage in his career, I think, but to be like nothing over the last 2 weeks, and then you start to see it here, and you're like, okay, we're getting into November. What could this guy be? Because it's just crazy. Like you can have a game against Carolina, and your attitude about the team is as low as it can get, and then they do what they did today, and you're feeling optimistic and looking forward to next week and all that stuff. But Clowney being there, I think, kind of offsets some of the lack of production you're getting from Sam Williams and things like that. So I thought it was like good to see him give you something. Clearly, they were in chase mode, so they were dropping back. Yeah, we know this. We know how this goes, the game flow and things like that. But it was good to see people just step up and go make a bunch of plays. I also think, like, looking as a whole at the Cowboys defense, the energy of just flying around was back. And, it's easy on watching TV. A camera cuts to Eberflus fist pumping on the sidelines, but we ain't seen that. Like, we haven't seen that, like, excited nature of the team. And kind of good to see. And, makes you look going. Because, Denver and Arizona, a bye week, and then the Raiders, all three of those are very winnable games. I do think Denver's a decent team, but
yeah.
I do not fear Bo Nix, and they just gave up 32 points to the New York Giants. And they fought back and got a pretty emotional win after they were down 26-8 in the fourth quarter, and they get the win 33-32. But like that Denver team, I worry about playing in Denver. That's never a fun thing, but Arizona's, had a tough one with Green Bay today, and Green Bay survived them. Mike had 3 sacks, I think. But that's another team you just watch and go, man, I'm just not that impressed by them. Like, Trey McBride's awesome, but you're not impressed. So with the way the Cowboys offense was clicking today with CD back and you get the full force of it, that makes you kind of start thinking a little bit higher of what this team can be.
Yeah, I think so. And we'll get into the preview later in the week for the Broncos. But the one thing I would say is they don't play that kind of shootout offense they were talking about with Cliff. So maybe that's something to watch for. But yeah, I think that was a very complete performance by the Cowboys. Again, Washington very shorthanded and all that stuff. But let's not act like we all expected them to come out and do this and win big against the Commanders. That was not the expectation for the vast majority of people. So credit where credit is due. And I think the Denver game is a good tune-up for what that difficult stretch is going to look like. And then you get kind of a softie in there. And then I think it's kind of off to the races at that point, and you'll get a good feel for what this team is really like.
From the stat book of John Machota, Dak 40 career games with 3+ passing touchdowns. That ties Tony Romo for the most in franchise history. It's kind of crazy how their careers are kind of just running parallel to each other is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and then it's also like I was just looking at it during the game. He's only 1,000 yards behind Romo for career passing yards in Cowboys history, and
Wow.
like 20 touchdowns, I think. So he might end the season, being the leader in everything across the
Yeah.
board. So
When he could get 1,000 yards in 2.5 games,
yeah,
maybe 2 games,
yeah,
20 touchdowns feels very, very possible too.
yeah,
Kenny Clark had the elbow injury. That's something we'll probably keep an eye on. That feels like that could be a big deal.
yeah.
But I think he'll be okay. I felt like they kind of got out relatively unscathed today, injury wise.
Yeah. I thought so too. Um, one thought that I had in the middle of the game, which is completely random and not really related to the game, but Tyler Smith got called for like a holding, I think, at one point during the game, and it just made me like reflect real quick. It took my brain to Zach Martin. Tyler Smith is an all pro and probably, top 3, 5 at his position in the NFL. And it just makes you appreciate how good Zach Martin was at
Yeah.
his peak. And for like 6 to 7 years, because Tyler Smith, I love Tyler Smith. I respect that. Like I said, I think he's one of the best guards in the NFL. But even like, the best of the best have those kind of slip ups. And like Zach Martin never got called for holding. He never got penalized in that way. Um, Throughout the entire prime of his career, which was really all the way up until last year. The only one play that I remember going like, holy crap, was when he got bulldozed by Aaron Donald in one game. But that was just a random stray thought that I had during the game when Tyler Smith got called for holding.
No, and another thing I do is say the biggest injury scare of this game was when Dak's helmet came off, and then he got kicked in the
Oh,
back of the
yeah.
head by Guyton too.
Yeah.
That was pretty wild play.
Yeah.
Didn't love the amount of flags thrown, but I think I was expecting this. Alex Kemp, the referee here, he is a flag thrower. He and his crew like to throw the flag, so that's well. He did have kind of a long game. Also had a long game because the teams are just scoring a lot. Um, I think there's like not a lot to gripe about, a lot to be thrilled about. Very weird how this division's turned. Like the Eagles get another win today, but a win where Minnesota. Hey, Carson Wentz has actually been fine for Minnesota. The Eagles actually looked good. I think today was probably the best game the Eagles have played all year. Jalen Hurts looked pretty good, and seeing the Giants go toe to toe with Denver was kind of wild. I mean, dude, they're up 26-8. But you sit here and go, man, the NFC's wide open. Green Bay, who looked dominant in weeks 1 and 2, do not look like they haven't played well since week 1 and 2. San Francisco, what are they? Detroit, we feel pretty good about. And Detroit, the Lions and Baker tomorrow night will be a lot of fun. But I can't help but like look at that in the NFC and go, dude, the defense is bad, but if it makes marginal improvements and CD, George Pickens, Dak, Javonte Williams remain healthy, it does feel like a 5, 6, or 7 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. You look at the conference, you look at the division. It is very possible, but like I said, I think this next game will tell us a little bit more about where the Cowboys are, because I do think the Commanders are not a very good football team, and they were very limited. But like I said, not much to gripe about. I will give you one thing if you want to have a little negativity in your life. I think there's some hard questions that the Cowboys offensive staff need to ask about Jalen Tolbert and where he fits in this offense, because with CD back, George Pickens there, Kevontae Turpin back, which by the way, sneaky improvements there for Kevontae Turpin. Just the speed, the one quick pass that he had a quick spin and took up the sideline. A lot of really good small plays that you want from your third, fourth receiver and your special teams guy on that contract. Really solid. And then Mingo's on his way back. And Ryan Flanoy has already showed us. I just named 5 receivers. Is Jalen Tolbert your number 6 at this point? So he got called for a holding on a big Jaden Blue run. Yeah, I think if you're if you want one thing to be critical about, I do think that the Jalen Tolbert conversation is not a big one, not an important one. It's not a huge deal, but I think he's probably falling into the 5, 6 range on the depth chart.
Can we go back to Javon? By the way, I agree with you on all of that, and that's. I mean, it's where we are with him. Like, if he's not needed, that's fine. Like, he's not needed as much. Having Turpin out there as I hate to use the word gimmick because he can play he actually play wide receiver, but you're worried about a lot of other stuff when you get CeeDee Lamb back, and Jake Ferguson's even there as well, and he gets a lot of touchdowns. I think now with people thinking about other things. Can we talk about Javonte Williams for a second? I mean,
yeah.
Look, when I watch him, I sit there and I'm like, okay, this is Josh Jacobs. I mean, that's who he's running like, and Javonte Williams doesn't have all the credentials at this point. He is clearly going to be a guy who's seeking, money in the offseason and things like that. But, at this point, the way things have been going at running back with this team, it makes me a little interested in just, hey, what do you want? And maybe starting that conversation. You need to prove you're healthy. It's week 7. I'm not overreacting, but I'm open for conversations about getting that going. These are it's a little different than the George Pickens situation. A little more proven, money way higher, it's a little different, but these are also like two guys where you go, well, the 2026 Dallas Cowboys are going to need to fill the hole of George Pickens and Javonte Williams. Like, that doesn't seem like a good plan.
No, I agree with you, but it's the reason, and you're right. It's nothing like Pickens. And the reason why is because I think for all of us who lived through the 2024 Cowboys, we have to make sure we don't overreact to what the improvement has been, because you have to remember that they were not playing with a running back with a pulse for more than half the season last year. So the improvement seems so large. But remember, I think Rico Dowdle's doing a very similar thing to Javonte Williams. Not the same. I think Javonte's playing better than Rico, but Rico went off for another 79 yards today as well. For the Carolina Panthers, he had back-to-back 200-yard scrimmage games and things like that. Javonte Williams is a good running back. Don't get me wrong. You don't need to break the bank for a guy that's getting a little older, who's had a couple of major injuries. And for further proof of that, just look across the sideline today. I know he had a bad game today for sure, but Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, I mean, that's your that's a 7th round pick for the Commanders in this past year's draft. He's a rookie, and I could see him starting for the Commanders for the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So as long as you have a passing offense that's not going to let the opposing defense load the box, you have a decent offensive line, and you have a running back with a pulse plus a little more maybe, I think you're fine. Javonte Williams is playing really well, so I don't want to discount or discredit what he's doing, but I'm not losing as much sleep about Williams in the running back situation going forward compared to what it could be without Pickens.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just and trust me, I'm not super look ahead guy either. I'm more of a week by week type of person, but these are conversations we can have. Maybe we'll rope John in on that later in the week, and we'll have a myriad of topics as we'll get you ready for the Cowboys and the Broncos a little bit later in the week here on the One Star Cowboys podcast. Kent, you got any closing thoughts for us before we hand it off to Father John Machota?
Nope, you guys nailed it.
Yeah, it's a nice, easy, comfortable win, right? Needed that one after last week's whatever that was in Carolina. It was kind of interesting too. The Carolina and the Jets played today too, and it was easily the worst game of the slate. I mean, it's kind of a bad week of NFL football, honestly. I think college kind of won this week. Man, seeing the Jets and Panthers go at it a little bit today on Red Zone was, that is torture chamber stuff right there, man.
Also, by the way, speaking of bad games today, if we record our next podcast and Mike McDaniel's still the head coach in Miami, I would be shocked. I would be shocked if that was happening.
Dude, he is going to be a consultant for the 49ers, the Rams, or the Packers sometime in probably the next month. Yeah. I don't see how he makes it out of Cleveland with the job. Everything is going very, very poorly in Miami. So we'll pour one out for Don Shula. All right, Saad, we'll talk to you later in the week. We'll be following your stuff over on The Athletic as always. Kent, thank you as well. We'll be checking out the Mad About Movies podcast. We got some big movies coming out in the next week or two. That's pretty interesting. A busy movie month.
Very.
And then also we'll be catching up with John. You know what? I'm not going to tease you on that. We'll catch up with Father John Machota right now to end the day on the One Star Cowboys podcast.
Leaving AT&T Stadium, I'm trying to decide how much credit the defense deserves for this win over Washington, or is it just more about the offense? I ended up writing mostly about the offense off of this game, the reason being because I still believe that this team only goes as far as this offense carries it. If you keep George Pickens healthy and CeeDee Lamb healthy and Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson and that offensive line and Kevontae Turpin, I do believe this is an offense that can hang with any team in the NFL. Even that late November, December stretch where you got Kansas City and Detroit and Philadelphia, I think if not all of them, at least one or two of those games between, the Chargers and that end of season with Washington again or New York. I don't think any of those are gimmies either. And so that's going to be a tough stretch. I do think if this offense stays healthy and stays together, that they will be able to score against any of those teams. Without a notable move before the trade deadline, I just don't feel that way about the defense. Even with DeMarvion Overshown, I think they can get better, but I don't have that feeling that they can win ball games with the defense this year. Maybe next year, use both those first-round picks on the defense, add some pieces. I'm still not to the point where I watched this team today, and I still think about how the Jerron Bland pick, yes, that looked like a couple years ago when this was a much better defense, no question, than what they are right now. But it's hard for me to dismiss that Terry McLaurin wasn't out there today. It's hard for me to dismiss that Deebo Samuel wasn't out there today. It's hard for me to dismiss that Jaden Daniels was out early in the third quarter. I'm not saying that they would have made a comeback just because of how well the Cowboys are moving the ball on offense, but there was at least a chance with Jaden Daniels. You never got that feeling with Marcus Mariota. And so this is not the Washington team, not even close to that group that we saw last year, late in the season, going into the playoffs, the team that beat Detroit and was really, to me, the best Washington team of the last 20 years. This team's too banged up for that. But you took care of business, so you deserve credit for that. The defense played more man. They blitzed more. There's a ton of credit for all of that stuff. I thought there was some improvement there, but I just don't think it's some major turning of the corner. And so now if you stack a couple of these together, then that'd be a little bit different. Do this against Denver, and you really should be able to do it against Arizona and Las Vegas, but that's a little bit further down the road. But if you do this against Denver, I think then it starts moving. Where I'm at right now, it's still this team is all about how far the offense can take it. And this offense can take them probably pretty far, like I said, if they stay healthy. The Pickens move, it exceeds expectations up to this point. I don't know how you could say anything other than that. He didn't have a touchdown in this game. Like, it just seemed like he was just going to do every single week. But he still was extremely impactful. And it's not just his catch radius and the highlight grabs he makes, but it's the pass interference penalties he draws. And then CeeDee Lamb I saw out here today, makes me completely believe that he could have played against Carolina. Now, he would have been I probably wouldn't have looked as good as he did today. He probably needed the extra week, don't get me wrong. But if it was a playoff game last week against Carolina, he would have played in that game. He did not show me any signs today of any major residuals from that ankle injury. He looked like the old CeeDee Lamb. And they really only needed him and George to be outstanding for really about a half of this game. And then you mix in that Javonte Williams in the run game got back to what it was supposed to be. Really don't know why, judging by what Javonte said, they weren't physical enough in Carolina. But that Carolina run game that they had a week ago, that didn't make any sense to me. And they had a bounce back game here. Javonte had over 100 yards, a touchdown, and I think he had 19 carries. That getting Tyler Booker back probably impacted that, Obviously, they got back CD, but then they also got back Kevontae Turpin. And so there's just a lot of weapons on the offense. 2 touchdowns today from Jake Ferguson. It's like it's easy to forget some of these things because of other highlights, like 2 Washington defenders running into each other while CD and Pickens for the last 20 yards, they basically got their back to the end zone as they're just easily trotting in for a touchdown. That just doesn't happen very often in the NFL. But the weapons the Cowboys offense has, and I'm almost 5 minutes into this thing, and I haven't really mentioned Dak Prescott and the level he's playing at. To have, I think he's at now, I think it's 13 touchdowns over the last 4 games without a single interception. I don't care who your competition is. If you're playing NFL teams and you're doing that, crazy impressive. If the team was playing better, I mean, they're a 500 team right now. If this was a 5-6 or maybe even a 4-win team, I could lean a little bit more into the MVP talk. I just think that there's going to be quarterbacks on some of those teams that because the team's winning more, and that's not Dak's fault. If the Cowboys had a better defense, he probably would be in the top 2 or 3 for MVP odds right now. But I just don't think that the defense and the team success, I know that shouldn't make that much of a difference in MVP, but look at the history of the award. It's going to probably go to a quarterback of a team that had one of the top 4 or 5 records in the NFL. But that shouldn't take anything away from the way Dak Prescott's playing right now. Just outstanding. And Brian Schottenheimer mentioned this after the game, that Dak probably took too many hits in this game, more than they would like. Dak went to the podium after the game with pretty good wrapping on his left hand. So obviously not it's his non-throwing hand. So that's not of great significance. And he said it's just a little bit of swelling and he should be fine. But that's not anything to alarm you. It's just the fact of like, you also got to be careful. Like you don't want him taking a bunch of hits. I mean, you saw it today with Jaden Daniels. Like you take him off the field for Washington, that offense isn't close to being anything that you're really that nervous about. If you took Dak Prescott off this offense, it would be the exact same thing. You might as well just start getting ready for the draft. And so that's something obviously to keep an eye on. But yeah, if they were able to get some good fortune in the health department, after the bye, you get back BB, you get back DeMarvion Overshown, there could be some really good days ahead for this Cowboys team. But I'm just a little bit, I don't want to go too far on the whole defense all of a sudden has turned a corner, because I know better than that. You got to put together a few games in a row before I would go that far. But to not have some key guys, obviously Trayvon Diggs didn't play, Marshawn Nealon didn't play, and it hasn't been a great defense. So to get the win, hold the team to basically around 20 points, that's what you're going to need to do week in and week out for them to have a chance to be a playoff team, because let's be honest, it's going to be a tough climb to even have a chance to do that. As I look at their schedule right now, I still think even with good health, this is probably around an 8-win team. Maybe they prove me wrong, but that's where I'm at if they keep rolling right now and the defense doesn't get significantly better. Defense gets significantly better, this could be a 10-win team. That's probably what you need to make the playoffs. But we don't need to worry about that right now. There's plenty of time to go between now and then. So let's just see how they bounce back or how they build off of this, I should say, going to Denver next week. And we'll have plenty more later on this week. So keep checking back with us. We appreciate it.
I don't have time to have a bad time. It ain't on my schedule.